Audio has to finish first.
Yes, Prabhu.
Audio has to finish first, and then I change the next slide.
Okay. But we were able to see the text.
Yes.
So
Yeah, and if I see something's out of whack, then I'll just say something. I'll say, okay, go back or go forward.
Okay, Prabhu. So
And there's one more audio after that with a monkey that you or the lemur. But anyway,
so this is our last session, Prabhu, 10th?
Yeah, it's the last session of the series, but then again, we are going to re-record number 1, so it's not goodbye forever.
Yes, of course. Of course. Yes. So,
Oh, good.
Prabhu, do we have the title of all the index? Do we have it?
Have a what?
The index of all the 10. Do we have?
Index? I'm not sure.
Like a serial number 1, 2, so we can tell this is what we have covered because we had a little gap.
Um,
On a sheet, do we have that name of the first seminar, second session, third session?
well, if you, every time we did one, I did send you the file, and on the file, it has the number. It has the L1, L2 with the title. L1, the spiritual masters, L2, the founder Acharya principle. It's right. It's how the file is labeled that I sent you for the slides and the script.
Yes, Prabhu. But we don't have on a single sheet, like all 10 of them.
On a sheet, no. But yeah, I guess I could send you, I could make a compressed file. Well, I'm not sure, I'm not clear on why you need that. What's that for?
Just to revise, Prabhuji, this is what we have done till now because we had a gap.
Okay, well, I can.
Or you can speak, Prabhuji. You can.
Yeah,
you
I can
speak.
tell you what it is. Yeah. Okay, I know this is being recorded, so I'm sure you're going to edit this part out. We're still backstage.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. So we'll start. We will start.
Okay.
So I'll introduce. Hare Krishna and Pranam, dear devotees. So welcome to our session on Prabhupada Founder Acharya series. So today we are going to take lesson number 10 on our Srila Prabhupada, like this. So we had a little gap, but fortunately we are back, and His Grace Suresvara Prabhu is also there. So all of us, we heartily thank Prabhuji for giving us his association and these wonderful seminars which we've been hearing. So we heartily welcome Prabhuji by loudly chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. His Grace Suresvara Prabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Welcome, Prabhu.
Thank you. So great to be back, even though it's virtual. Virtual is better than nothing, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
So because it's been so long, dear Raj Prabhu asked me to just review at least the titles of the lessons so we can refresh ourselves as to the sequence of this seminar series. So lesson 1, way back when, maybe a year ago, I'm not sure. It was called The Spiritual Masters. And lesson 2, the Founder Acharya Principle. And lesson 3, Srila Prabhupada, our Founder Acharya. So those first 3 lessons comprise the Sambandha section of the series, where we're deepening our relationship with Srila Prabhupada. The next 4 lessons, beginning with lesson 4, is the Abhideya section of the series, where we're deepening our commitment to Srila Prabhupada's mission. So lesson 4 is his mission's roots. Lesson 5 was his ISKCON branch. Lesson 6, his Varnashram challenge. Lesson 7, finding our mission in his mission. And then there's 3 more lessons in the series, starting with lesson 8, which are the Prayojana section of the series, where we deepen our love for Srila Prabhupada. So Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Lesson 8 was to love is to cooperate. Lesson 9 was fictional Prabhupads, make-believe Prabhupads, unreal Prabhupads. And today's final lesson, now that we've cleared away the misconceptions about Srila Prabhupada, we're ready to talk about your Srila Prabhupada. Even though Prabhupada is a single person, we all have different relationships with him based on who we are and what our contribution is to his mission. So we're going to talk about that today. Your Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so we'll go to the slides. Got to get it in slideshow mode. There we go. Okay. So, Hare Krishna Prabhus, welcome to the 10th and final lesson of the Founder Acharya Essentials series called Your Srila Prabhupada. Now, before we look at some ways to access and nourish our personal, foundational relationship with His Divine Grace, let's consider how Srila Prabhupada is for everyone. Okay, slide. That is an early picture of Srila Prabhupada. You can see Prabhupada traveled the world, 14 times in 12 years. That's an early shot, and you can see how it was before he'd really completely exhausted his body on the altar of Sankirtan. So he looks a little younger there. It's a New York photo. Okay, so this is called Universal Teacher. This is one way Srila Prabhupada's for everyone. The year was 1935, not on the slide, that's like, 66, but the year of my narration here. The year was 1935. In February, Abhay Charanaravindra Das spoke at the Vyasa Puja celebration of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Bombay. Not only was the Thakur Abhay's spiritual master, he was the founder Acharya of the entire Gaudiya mission, which had ignited a renaissance of Krishna consciousness throughout the Indian subcontinent. Addressing the assembly, Abhay declared, quote, so this is part of Prabhupada's speech, "The Acharya Dev, to whom we have assembled tonight to offer our humble homage, is not the guru of a sectarian institution or one out of many differing exponents of the truth. On the contrary, he is the Jagad Guru, the guru of all of us. The only difference is that some obey him wholeheartedly, while others do not obey him directly," unquote. So that was in 1935. Now, 36 years later, after Prabhupada had started ISKCON and was wildly successful, 36 years later was 1971. So in 1971, after Prabhupada had become ISKCON's founder Acharya, a reporter asked him how many followers he had. This is at the San Francisco Rath Yatra. Okay, click, there we go. "Unlimited," Prabhupada replied, echoing his homage to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta decades earlier. "Some admit and some don't admit. Admit you are a servant of Lord Krishna and your life will be a success." So that's amazing how Prabhupada, he was saying the same thing about his own position as founder Acharya, as he had said about his founder Acharya of the Gaudiya mission 36 years earlier. So that's one way Prabhupada's for everyone, universal teacher, And now we'll go to the third slide where, and you can click again. Click. Yeah, global preacher. There, Srila Prabhupada is in the image. He's disembarking from a plane. He's just coming into Geneva, Switzerland. It's June 74. There's Satsvarup Maharaj serving him. And he's disembarking out of the belly of the plane. They don't do that anymore. There's some security reason they don't do that. I forget what it is, but. Okay, so between 1965 and 1977, Srila Prabhupada circled the globe 14 times, establishing the Krishna consciousness movement on every major continent. Okay, let's click one more time. Okay, I already did that. He also initiated thousands of followers and continues to inspire countless more to accept Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. At an age when most people wish to comfortably retire, Prabhupada kept up a non-stop preaching pace, tirelessly responding to his mission's demands. As he wrote one disciple, quote, and by the way, the disciple had written inviting Prabhupada to the San Francisco Rath Yatra. That's the background. Quote, regarding your invitation that I attend the Rath Yatra festival in San Francisco on July 7th, it is possible that I may attend, depending on when I finish my European tour, because Prabhupada is, as you see in the image there, he's in Europe. I am due to arrive in Rome on May 23, then after a week, Geneva, that's where he is in that picture, then Paris and possibly Stockholm, Germany, and England. If there is time, I can fly directly from Europe to Los Angeles and go to the festival. And by the way, in LA, you still have to take a little plane up to San Francisco. Then, as you suggest, go to Australia, Rath Yatra, via Hawaii. Whew. That's quite an itinerary. I get exhausted just thinking about it. This is known as Jet Age Paribrajaka Acharya. That's a letter to my godbrother Jayatirtha, 5th May 1974, that Prabhupada wrote from Bombay just as he was about to leave on the European tour. Now, Prabhupada actually, he says, this is known as Jet Age Paribrajaka Acharya. Why don't you try clicking one more time? I guess that's all in that slide. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So what was I thinking? Oh yeah, Prabhupada did not coin that phrase, Jet Age Paribrajaka, but he had recently read it. I think it was in the Hindustan Times. Somebody had noticed Prabhupada's itinerary, and what the reporter said, this is a Jet Age Swami. This is a Jet Age, because nobody ever traveled like that so much, you know, a Swami. But even though Prabhupada was a Jet Age Swami, astonishingly, Jet Age Prabhupada never knew jet lag, or ignored it if he did, instantly adapting to the time at his latest destination. Though most of his disciples were young enough to be his grandchildren, they couldn't keep up with him. As Prabhupada would sometimes say, my desire is to spread Krishna consciousness everywhere at once. So even though we were young enough to be his grandchildren, we couldn't keep up with him. He was not behaving like an old man. He was behaving like someone on fire. And of course, that was what Prabhupada was. He was on fire with the spiritual energy, the bhakti shakti to do what he did. Okay, slide. Yes, Srila Prabhupada, there we go, matchless giver. That Srila Prabhupada founded over 100 Hare Krishna temples, schools, farms, restaurants, and other projects, all while writing and publishing dozens of translations and commentaries on foundational Vaishnava scriptures, is simply superhuman. I mean, even if you just try to write something, try to write a book, it's such an intense concentration exercise that you don't want any distractions. Prabhupada was always being, so to speak, distracted, because while he was translating all these books, he was traveling all around the world opening up centers. So there was so much to pull him away from his main mission, was to leave this legacy of the Bhagavatam and also other foundational texts, Nectar Devotion, Krishna Book, what to speak of Chaitanya Chaitamrita. So how did he do it? Well, for one thing, Prabhupada did not sleep much. After going to bed at 10, he would usually rise at midnight or 1 a.m. and write through the wee hours. So he was only able to do what he did when we were asleep, because we were so needy. We were always, wherever he went, devotees had so many questions, problems. And then, of course, there were so many guests to meet. So while everybody else was sleeping, Prabhupada, he gave up. He was like the Goswamis. Nidrahara bihadikadi vijito. He gave up sleeping to give the world his translation and commentaries on these foundational texts. If he had time, he would nap for maybe a half hour after breakfast and even a full hour after lunch. His days and nights were a seamless weave of selfless service. So when Prabhupada went to rest, he didn't rest like we did. We take out this big block of time and then we forget everything, and and then we wake up, we have to shake the cobwebs out of our consciousness and rub our eyes. But Prabhupada's servants always told how when Prabhupada would go to sleep, it wasn't like he was succumbing to the mode of ignorance, because when he was awake, he was thinking of Krishna, and when he went to sleep, he was resting his body, but he was in full consciousness. He'd go to sleep, and he'd close his eyes, and then he would wake up fully conscious, and he'd just pick up very often. If he was having a conversation with his servant before he went to sleep, he'd pick right up with the exact sentence when he'd wake up. Or he might continue the same conversation months later with the servant, and the servant, it would sound familiar to him, and then he would say, oh yeah, Prabhupada's talking about that. Okay, I remember that conversation. So Prabhupada, he was just in full control of his faculties, and he wasn't, when he was sleeping, he wasn't just buried in the mode of ignorance. He was fully Krishna conscious. Another short sleeper is the cow, to whom Prabhupada would sometimes compare himself. Guru Das recalls that in Bombay, he once told Prabhupada he was concerned not enough people would come to a program the devotees had arranged. Prabhupada replied, no, I'm like a cow. I give milk anywhere. This is what I like to do. Another story was Prabhupada was traveling from one temple to another in America. So the temple that Prabhupada was going to called up, and they said, can you ask Srila Prabhupada if he's going to eat there, or is he going to eat here when he arrives? Because it wasn't a very long flight, it was a short flight. So the devotee from the temple where Prabhupada was asked Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, the devotee came back to the phone and said, Srila Prabhupada said he's like a cow because he can eat in this pasture, or when he gets to where you are, he can eat in that pasture. So you can eat in both places. He's like a cow. So I always liked it when Prabhupada compared himself to a cow, because Prabhupada's lips, and tongue always reminded me of a cow. The first time I saw Srila Prabhupada, it was in an airport. That's very often where we first glimpsed Prabhupada, flying in from somewhere. And so somebody offered him a sweet ball, and so or a plate of fruits and sweets. So Prabhupada picked up what we call Simply Wonderful, threw it in his mouth, just threw the whole little ball in his mouth. And then there was a little crumb on his tongue. And I was sitting right on the side of Prabhupada, so I saw from the side how Prabhupada took his long tongue and he flicked it like a cow might into his mouth. So Prabhupada, like a Surabhi cow, giving unlimited quantities of Krishna consciousness. This is what I like to do, Prabhupada said. Okay, slide. Oh, let's see what the words say on Matchless Giver. All right, yeah, there it is. This is superhuman, what he did. He was translating all these books, but look what he did. He opened all these schools, farms, restaurants, affiliates. Oof, amazing. Okay, slide. Avesh Avatar. Yes. The Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita Anchalila 7.11 states, quote, the fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Unless empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement, unquote. Commenting on this verse, Prabhupada further identifies the one who empowers the spreader of the chanting. Okay, click again. Another click. Yes. Okay. Yes. So this is from a purport. Quote, unless one is empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one cannot spread the holy names of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra throughout the world. Persons who do so are empowered. Okay, next slide. I think it's the rest of the quote. Yeah. Therefore, they are sometimes called Avesh avatars, or empowered incarnations, for they are endowed with the Shakti, the power of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Shakti Avesh, Avesh avatars, unquote. Now, even if you're a Shakti Avesh avatar doing what no one ever did before, which is to spread the Krishna consciousness all over the world, you're going to have critics, because that's the way of the world. I once saw a t-shirt, it said, avoid criticism, do nothing. But of course, even if you do nothing, you'll also be criticized. So that's just the way it is in the material world. So here's a criticism that somebody made of Prabhupada. Once an Indian Swami criticized Prabhupada's global preaching by saying that if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had wanted Krishna consciousness in the Western countries, why didn't he go there himself? He meaning Mahaprabhu. To which Prabhupada replied, quote, he left the credit for me. He loves his devotee more than himself. Prabhupada always had an instant reply, especially for his critics. Yet Prabhupada always passed on that credit to others, to his followers, to his spiritual master, and finally to Krishna himself. It is a mark of Prabhupada's absolute transparency as an Avesh avatar that he named his movement after Lord Krishna, not himself. It's the Hare Krishna movement, right? It's not the Bhaktivedanta Swami movement. That he named his movement after Lord Krishna, not himself, whom most of the world has yet to discover. Even if people have heard of Hare Krishna, very often, at least in the West, I'm not sure how it is in India, but they are less likely to know Prabhupada. That's our job as the generations of his followers. We have to make everybody aware of Prabhupada, and then they'll be curious to find out who he is and then maybe read his books. That's why that movie was called Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the Swami who started it all. Yeah. I want to introduce, that's what Yadavar, when he made that movie with his wife, Vishaka, that was his 50th anniversary of ISKCON. That was his offering to Prabhupada. A movie that would make people aware of him. Okay, slide. There we go. There's the photo that really drew me in. As you hear on Prabhupada memories, you hear devotees say, yes, when I saw Prabhupada, I knew he was my guru, or you say, or they might say, there's a picture, there's the picture that I couldn't get out of my mind. So that's the picture that so full of gravity and compassion, which just knocked me out. It was an early picture too. It's one of the pictures that Guru Das Prabhu took when Prabhupada left New York, 26 Second Avenue, went to San Francisco, and then the devotees in New York were so lonely and so lost without Prabhupada's Bapu, because everybody is so neophyte. So Prabhupada said, well, just do what I told you to do, follow the program, and put a picture of me on my seat. So the devotees wrote back and said, but we don't have a picture. People weren't taking pictures of Prabhupada then, because he was there in person. So they didn't, but now they felt the need. So Prabhupada said, oh, all right. So then he turned to his new devotee. His name was Roger Siegel, and he became Guru Das. And Roger was good with the camera. So Guru Das tells in his memories how he arranged these shots, and they all became just iconic shots of Prabhupada, especially this one. Okay, so now we're getting into, this is a transition. Remember, we were talking about how Prabhupada is for everyone. So now, if Prabhupada's for everyone, he's certainly for everyone in ISKCON. He's not just for his, initiated disciples. If Srila Prabhupada is for everyone, all of that resolution's points. So I think we saw the first two, maybe in the last lesson, but we're going to look at all of them. A, okay, just go back to those first two. Yeah. Okay. A, Srila Prabhupada is the foundational Shiksha Guru for all ISKCON devotees. Yeah, foundational. B, Srila Prabhupada's instructions are the essential teachings for every ISKCON devotee. Slide. So we can do C, D, and E. Srila Prabhupada's books are the embodiment of his teachings and should be accepted as the standard by all future generations of ISKCON. Prabhupada wanted us to write books too, but not to try to, surpass him, of course. You don't try to surpass the founder Acharya. You just, our books, our videos, our audios, or whatever we do, our media, as we continue the parampara, the measure of their value is that they inspire people to come to Prabhupada's books and his movies and his audio. That's the measure. And then they'll be able to drink deeply at the Vani, at the everlasting Vani of Prabhupada's spotless contribution, the spotless Krishna consciousness. Okay. D, Srila Prabhupada should be worshipped daily by every ISKCON member. Yes, that was also a revolutionary move of Prabhupada to establish his own Guru Puja right in front of the deities after Darshan Arti, but that had a purpose. E, every spiritual master is responsible to guide his disciples to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions. That's the real essential business of Shiksha and Diksha Gurus. Now, that was in 1994. More founder Acharya resolutions since then have identified our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada as the sublime pivot around which all our other relationships in his society turn. Amid our ever-increasing diversity, Srila Prabhupada remains the unity. We've got so much diversity in ISKCON. What we need is more unity. That's a fact. So, having said that, let's get right into your Srila Prabhupada. Okay. That's good. There's a collage. If you were born after Prabhupada's time, or never knew him when he walked among us, you may wonder what will happen to his society when the last, quote, Prabhupada disciple, meaning initiated disciple, has left this world. Now, if we understand, quote, disciple in its literal meaning as follower, if you trace the root of that English word disciple, it actually means follower. If we understand disciple in its literal meaning as follower, we will realize that as the Hare Krishna movement continues to expand, Prabhupada's presence will likewise expand through his divine instructions. Despite our different Gurudevs, since we all share the same founder Acharya, generations will continue to follow Prabhupada into and out of this world, sharing Krishna's mercy with suffering humanity in many ways. So that is, there we go to the collage. Which aspect of Srila Prabhupada inspires you most? Prabhupada, the world Sankirtan party leader, the divine writer, sublime chef, back to the land of Krishna pioneer, cultural conqueror, Vaishnavi empowerer, master educator, founding father. The list goes on. That's just a little sample. A true transcendental Renaissance man, Prabhupada is many-sided, but to whichever side we're attracted, there are standard ways to build a personal, foundational relationship with his divine grace. Okay, go to the next slide. Yeah, just leave it there. And the first way is by spiritual sound vibration. That is the most basic and powerful way to connect with Srila Prabhupada. The first and foremost way we can all connect with Prabhupada is by becoming keen students of his spoken and written word. Regular, attentive hearing from our founder Acharya, especially in the company of sincere and serious devotees, grounds us in the root relationship that nourishes us all. And I'll give you an example of staying connected with Srila Prabhupada. You see the audio icon there. We're going to hear a little clip. Not quite yet, but we're going to hear a clip. My great godsister Rukmini, who was Wendy Weiser at the time, she was passing through Montreal. She joined in San Francisco, and that was at the time that the three household couples, Vakunda and Janaki and Shamsundar and Malati and Gurudas and Jamuna, had been called by Prabhupada to go to England, or they actually, it was their idea. And Prabhupada was in Montreal. So San Francisco is on the western side of the US and Montreal is still in North America, although it's in Canada. So Montreal was kind of a logical place to stop because Prabhupada was there. So before embarking on this incredible attempt to open up England, and their idea was to meet the Beatles. And there was nobody bigger in 1968 than the Beatles. I mean, they had the attention of the whole world. So they stopped in Montreal to get Prabhupada's blessings. They knew they needed empowerment to do this kind of mission impossible. So Wendy accompanied them, even though she wasn't going on to England. She was, she wanted to meet, she'd been hearing about Prabhupada. So she stopped, and Prabhupada initiated her on August 15th. And then on the 18th of August, Prabhupada's giving a Bhagavatam class. And she said, because Prabhupada asked for questions or comments, and you can hear her in the in the recording say, Swamiji, when you're not here, I feel so lonely. I feel so alone. So now you're going to hear. So she was looking for, a solution, how to overcome this feeling, thinking that she's separate from Prabhupada, away from him. And so now you can read what Prabhupada says when Prabhu clicks, and also hear what he's saying. Okay, go ahead. Click. Whoops. Back. Yeah. Should I read? I can't hear Prabhupada's voice. Should I read it?
I can hear Prabhuji, but it is low.
Okay. All right. Somehow the audio wasn't working on Zoom. So here's how Prabhupada replied. Oh, that you should not think. Don't think you're away from me, that I'm far away from you. There are two conceptions of the spiritual master. The physical conception is temporary. So you notice Prabhupada is not saying Vapu and Vani. He's spoon feeding the devotees with English. The vibration conception, that's what we call Vani, is eternal. Just like we are enjoying or we are relishing the vibration of Krishna's teachings. Okay, next slide. Yes, so Prabhupada is saying, so by vibration, he is present. As soon as we chant Hare Krishna or chant Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavat, so he is present immediately by his vibration. So we should give more stress on the sound vibration, either of Krishna or of the spiritual master. Then we'll feel happy and no separation. It's so interesting how Wendy asked about being separate from Prabhupada, and Prabhupada immediately, he says, no, look, as soon as you open up the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's present by the vibration, even though Krishna spoke it, physically in this world, over 5,000 years ago, but Prabhupada's saying even right now, you open up the Gita and there's Krishna. So Prabhupada is introducing us to what real presence is. It's in the eternal vibration, because the manifested presence, that comes and it goes. But Guru, Krishna, people who are on the eternal platform of eternal consciousness, that's forever. So then we'll feel happy and no separation. So he's encouraging Wendy to hear him. Well, at that point, there were no tapes. There wasn't any tape ministry yet, but there was Prabhupada's. And actually, even his, wow, the first books hadn't even come out yet. So I guess the only way to remember what Prabhupada at that point was through letters. That's why he was writing so many letters. Yeah, she was writing letters, so many, and Prabhupada was answering every one. Yeah. But Prabhupada always insisted that everything he speak be recorded. So now we have the benefit of that. Prabhupada called these recordings his separated energy. Separated from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta for decades, Prabhupada would nonetheless say he always felt his spiritual master right by his side. How? By absolute absorption in hearing, chanting, and applying Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's teachings. In the same way, in the company of sincere and serious devotees, absorbed in studying and presenting Prabhupada's teachings, we will also feel Prabhupada's presence always in our lives. And now we go to the next slide, which is, I give two examples from rather famous devotees from my generation, a famous god brother, a famous god sister. I call it two exemplars, famous examples of how they kept close to Prabhupada through Prabhupada's vibration. In this connection, two exemplary devotees from my generation come to mind, Jayananda Prabhu and Jamuna Devi. So we all see Jayananda's name on the calendar, but now people don't even know who he is because they never met Jayananda. I was lucky enough to meet him and be living in Los Angeles in the last months of his life as he was directing the construction of the first Rath Yatra carts for the Los Angeles Rath Yatra. And then Jamuna, I also had the good fortune to meet her, and she's also passed on. In 1967, Jamuna and Jayananda were among the first to join Srila Prabhupada's movement in San Francisco. Yeah, they're really early. Deeply devoted to Prabhupada from the start, they were also as different as night and day. And in those pictures, those photos, they're both walking with Prabhupada in Golden Gate Park. Golden Gate Park is a beautiful park in San Francisco. And there's many aspects to the park. And to this day, that's where they have the San Francisco Rath Yatra. So there's big Jaina, he was a big man. And then there's Jamuna with Prabhupada. Different, although they joined at the same time in the same place, they were so different. To meet Jamuna was to meet a priestess of devotion, expressed most wonderfully through her cooking, singing, and deity worship. Very cultured kind of person. Prabhupada, the cultural conqueror, came through Jamuna. Jayananda was strong as an ox and humble as grass. A mechanical engineer by training, Jayananda was a tireless worker who was perhaps most beloved for building huge chariots for ISKCON's annual Rath Yatra parades. Prabhupada's surpassing strength and humility came through Jayananda. Different as they were, Jamuna and Jayananda both had a deep love for hearing from Srila Prabhupada. By developing a similar love and a deep dedication to serving Srila Prabhupada's mission, one or more aspects of our beloved founder Acharya will also shine through us. That's the point. You know, that collage that we were looking at before, Prabhupada has so many aspects and nobody has all of Prabhupada. He's just too much. He's just too, like a Vaidurya gem, according to what kind of light is shining on it. It shows different colors, you know. So he's like a transcendental Renaissance man with so many different aspects. But we also have a certain nature, and by connecting with Srila Prabhupada through a certain aspect of Prabhupada, we can also begin to reflect purely as time goes on, as we practice Krishna consciousness, at least an aspect of Prabhupada, and that will be attractive to people. Okay, slide. Okay, so now we get into another way to connect, a standard way. The first was hearing, and here's another one. Connect by finding and making your best contribution to our founder Acharya's mission. So by serving his mission. Since some dubious devotional groups prematurely focus on seeing Krishna face to face, Prabhupada admonished his followers that the best way to see Krishna is to serve his mission under the guidance of his pure devotee, the spiritual master. So let's click in a Bhagavatam excerpt, purport excerpt. Yes, Prabhupada writes, quote, when one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is tantamount to seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Wow, that's quite an amazing statement. when you become serious to follow the mission, that's as good as seeing Krishna face to face. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would say, don't try to see God. You work in such a way that God will see you. And when that work is done cooperatively in Srila Prabhupada's mission, synergizing the efforts of different generations, Krishna sees and blesses us manyfold. Okay, slide. Now, believe it or not, okay, so yeah, stay there. That's not a monkey. It's a lemur, which is kind of a cousin to the monkey, and it's found only like Madagascar, the Comoro Islands, off the east coast of Africa. But he was the best jumper I could find on Google Images, so I chose the lemur. In the early 1970s, as more Western devotees began to visit India, some became fascinated by the books in English of our Gaudiya predecessors, especially Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Bhaktivinoda. So they asked Prabhupada if they could read their writings. Prabhupada was not pleased. Yeah, because, at that point, we were Prabhupada himself was coming out with his own books. So they're immediately, wanting to jump to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Bhaktivinoda. So Prabhupada didn't like that. Now here's another audio. I don't know. Why don't we see if you can hear Prabhupada's voice? I'd rather you hear Prabhupada and you just follow the words. But let's see if you hear him. Click in the, one more click in the words. Oop. Can you click the rest of the slide in? Yeah. Can you hear Prabhupada's voice? No? Okay. All right. So I'll just read along. Prabhupada said, quote, "You cannot imagine what my spiritual master said. Or even if you read some books, you cannot understand unless you understand it from me. This is called parampara system. You cannot jump over to the superior guru, neglecting the next Acharya, immediate next Acharya." So hearing Prabhupada say that, you might think, well, that means I should just read the books of my Gurudev, immediate next Acharya. But we're forgetting, if we think like that, we're forgetting that Prabhupada is not simply a Gurudev or a Guru Maharaj. He's a founder Acharya. So in ISKCON's multiple guru culture today, we've come to realize that a prime duty of our initiating and instructing spiritual masters is to deepen, enhance, and enrich our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada. If, quote, no jumping over means no neglecting one's, quote, immediate next Acharya, how much more does that mean no neglecting Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, from whom we derive our core identity and through whom we see all teachers and teachings. And the more deeply our spiritual masters connect us with Srila Prabhupada, the more responsibility we have to pass on his unique legacy to others. So let's go to that. Next slide. Whoop. Go forward, not back. No. Forward. Yeah, back, forward, forward. Okay. So first we have to imbibe, right? We have to take Prabhupada in. Spoken word, written word, contribute to his mission. We have to take it in. And then we have to give it out. Imbibe, take in, impart, give it out. When Srila Prabhupada sees we're sincerely following him, he blesses us with the realization to pass on his teachings in ways both faithful and fitting. Prabhupada explains. So click This is a quote from one of my favorite purports, widely quoted by devotees, from 141 Bhagavatam purport. Quote, personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous Acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous Acharya, and at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. Next slide. Continues the quote. Yeah, now this is Prabhupada's own italics, so it's Prabhupada's own emphasis. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it. Yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization. How to take in Srila Prabhupada and then represent him in the literal sense of the word represent means to represent, present him all over again for the new time, the new place, the new people. I mean, we're like, what's it? It's 2023. So it's been, almost 60 years since Prabhupada came to the West. And no matter where you are in the world, times have changed. So we don't change the principles. We don't change the essence, but we do repackage it. We're constantly representing it for the new time, place, and circumstance. Prabhupada called it old wine in new bottles. That's called realization. So to do that, to know how to take the timeless message and present it in a way that's accessible for the new audience, that takes realization. And where does the realization come? It comes from surrendering to the order of Prabhupada and our gurus. Then we get empowered to do that, as Prabhupada was. To imbibe and impart Prabhupada's legacy is to become gurus in our own right, not to imitate or replace our founder Acharya, but to follow in his footsteps. As Srila Prabhupada put it, quote, because people are in darkness, we require many millions of gurus to enlighten them. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is, he said, that every one of you become guru. Amara Gai Guru Hanya Tare Desh. So here's how we end the lesson, Prabhus, before we go into questions or comments. I borrowed the end of the lesson from my godbrother Ravinda Swarup Prabhu, who wrote that booklet, GBC approved booklet, Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. At the end of that booklet, Prabhu has several bullet points, which are the benefits, as you see in the slide now, of deeply understanding Srila Prabhupada's mission. And we might say now that we're at the end of this seminar series, the benefits of taking this seminar series. What's the benefit of this? Okay, so in his GBC authorized booklet, Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, Ravinda Swarup Prabhu, concludes by listing the benefits of deeply understanding Prabhupada's unique transcendental position, especially for all who serve his movement. So we're going to gradually click in these points. There's 7 of them. Click. Yes, generation after generation will be able to receive the special mercy offered by Srila Prabhupada. The path back to Godhead he opened will become ever increasingly traveled. Yeah, Prabhupada is uniquely empowered to bring us so close to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So special mercy. Click. Srila Prabhupada's active presence will secure the unity and integrity of ISKCON, strengthening both the GBC and guru-disciple bonds. This Prabhupada wants us to cooperate, but sometimes there appears to be a conflict between, Prabhupada's managerial structure, the GBC, and the parampara structure, if you like, coming from guru to disciple. There shouldn't be a conflict. at all, but sometimes there appears to be. So we have to find that we have to obey Prabhupada's instructions to cooperate on all levels, managerial, spiritual. Okay. Slide. There you go. By taking full shelter of Srila Prabhupada as Shiksha Guru in his Vani manifestation, all teachers in ISKCON on various levels of advancement will be able to authentically convey Srila Prabhupada's real teaching, thus giving proper guidance, shelter, and protection to all. As soon as somebody starts to think that they know more than Prabhupada, or, Prabhupada was speaking at a time that's no longer relevant, and we have to do something different. Of course, we do have to adjust details, but we don't change principles. Then that's when the problems start, is when we drift. They call it in the corporate world mission drift, right? So we drift away from Prabhupada's mission. We neglect his priorities of distributing literature, worshiping the deity. What else? Educating people, having our own schools, distributing prasadam. There were so many ways, and he had these affiliates, like he had the Bhaktivedanta Institute, because the whole world is being fooled by materialistic science. So there's so many. We have to emphasize what Prabhupada wanted to emphasize. So when we do that, as we carry on the parampara and become gurus in our own right, shiksha or diksha, we have to keep Prabhupada's priorities. Okay, click. Next. ISKCON's teachings will remain consistent over space and time. Yeah, because if we start to deviate, then it might look like a small thing in the beginning, but over time it just becomes, the movement becomes unrecognizable. Just like Christianity, because there's no real guru parampara from Christ. What passes off as Christianity very often isn't even pious. Yeah, it becomes like a mockery of Christ's original teachings. We don't want to do that. We want to keep the parampara intact by keeping Prabhupada's Vani in the forefront. 5, okay, click. Prabhupada's realized knowledge, endowing him with a specific potency to spread Krishna consciousness, will be not only preserved, but also developed. Yeah, Prabhupada wrote and spoke about so many things, and we haven't even done. I mean, he himself, as he was leaving, he said 50% of his mission wasn't even done. He was talking about, the varnashram, spreading of Krishna consciousness through rural community development. It's a very underdeveloped side of the movement, which is one of the biggest doors to Krishna consciousness. As we speak right now, it's called the eco door. Prabhupada called it varnashram, community development. Well, just give it a new face, give it a new name. It's the same thing. The ecology door, global warming, climate change. As I speak, a lot of America is being engulfed by the kind of air maybe you're used to in Delhi. I know Delhi air is infamous. Mexico City, Delhi, Beijing, they have this, people can't even breathe it a lot. But now all over America, due to climate change, human-induced climate change, we have a big crisis right now. New York City, today in New York City, you can't breathe the air. You've got to go, they're saying go inside. You're risking your life if you go outside and breathe this air coming from all these fires. It's like 150 fires burning in in upstate New York and in Eastern Canada around Montreal. Yeah, it's like, whoa, it's happening. Yeah. So that makes people think, what are we doing? And so we should be ahead of this curve instead of being behind it. The eco door. Okay, click. Yes. His books will remain central to us. Oh, yeah. For they contain insights and directions that await future development. Yeah, that's actually the same thing. Okay, so click again. And finally, Srila Prabhupada's eyes will always remain the lens through which all future generations see our predecessor Acharyas. Prabhupada in his preaching would always refer to the previous Acharyas to show that what he was saying was not, he didn't make it up, but he was the latest representative of a timeless tradition. In our case, the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. So he would refer to Vishwanath and even other sampradayas, because they're, after all, as long as they were Vaishnava, Ramanuja, Madhva, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarka, he would quote previous acharyas. But Prabhupada's Bani, because what he did by the grace of the previous acharyas was unprecedented. No one ever did that. Whatever the previous acharyas say, we see and hear them through the lens of our own founder acharya. And that's so, it makes things so, simple and chaste. To be chaste and faithful to Prabhupada, we don't have to, bend our minds out of shape trying to understand Guru Sadhu Shastra. We just follow Prabhupada's understanding. And why not? Because he's such an intimate associate of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So all those benefits naturally accrue to devotees who realize their core identity as Prabhupada Anugas, Prabhupada's followers. Inspired by, quote, our Prabhupads, we will continue to cooperate, even when we disagree, to bring the Lord's mercy to everyone. I can't imagine a better way to please Srila Prabhupada, our beloved founder Acharya. So, okay, it's, my clock says it's 4 minutes past the half hour. We've been on for an hour and a half now, but it is the last lesson. So if you have time, we can take some questions and comments.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so very much, Prabhu, for such engaging, and also to have proper the different facets of Prabhupada and how we can all have our own Prabhupada and have our own way in which we can serve mission, Prabhupada's mission. And also the last point, Guru Maharaj also used to say, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, that your love for me will be shown. Prabhupada said, how you cooperate with each other. So, so by that we take that at least we want a Madhyam society, so where at least we are able to cooperate with each other, so we don't remain. And so I'm very, very thankful to you. So Hare Krishna, devotees. So I hope everybody enjoyed. And so if anybody has a question, then please raise the hand. We can ask question. We can take 1 or 2 questions.
It always comes back to you, Giriraj Prabhu.
Yes, true. So I want to ask Prabhu that many we see in the awe and reverence of Prabhupada as a Shakti Avatar, also as a world Acharya, but also there's a personal dealing he had with everybody. He didn't had that aura for himself, and he was very grounded, very much feet on the ground. So how do we make this because when you hear Prabhupada lectures, Bhagavatam lecture is strict, very grave, and when you hear memories, tapes, and the small, snippets from devotees, their interactions, their personal interaction with Prabhupada, it's very different Prabhupada, from what we hear. So how do we make, this connection a more personal connection rather than a world Acharya, a Shakti Vaishavta, but we encourage that we can all have a personal, relationship with Prabhupada and also have a reciprocation from him.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it really, as Prabhupada would say, I think I may have mentioned a godbrother once asked, Srila Prabhupada, can we, are you present in your Murti? And in this case, Prabhupada answered, yes, but that depends on your purity. In other words, if we're cheating Srila Prabhupada, say we have a Murti of Prabhupada, or at least we have a Murti in the temple, like during this presentation, they were having Guru Puja for part of while I was with you. So as much as we treat Prabhupada's Murti as him, then that Murti will reciprocate with us. Yeah, it's not some simply imagination, or it's like the deity. If I treat the deity as stone or wood or brass, then the deity, I'll never have any reciprocation because it'll just remain an idol, and I'll be kind of sloppy or inattentive in the way I take darshan of the deity, or the way I offer food to the deity, or clean the altar, or whatever. Even a pujari dressing the deity can do it mechanically and not do it with bhav, So it all comes down to learning how to approach Prabhupada as a person. And I guess a practical example too is even when we go to read his books, he's always available in his books or in his tapes, if we have tapes. If I'm, say I've been lax in my service, and then I sit down to read the books, I won't really be able to absorb those books because my attitude hasn't been good. I can only actually benefit from what Prabhupada has given me as much as I've appreciated what he's given and appreciated the gift, the privilege of devotional service. So it's a whole life challenge to just go deep into those 9 processes of devotional service and relate to Prabhupada personally. I just thought of something else too, to get back to your specific point. Yeah, how can we see him as not just the world Acharya, but as, our personal spiritual master, foundational spiritual master. And he did have those sides. My godbrother Ranchor, who was a pioneer in England, who wrote the book When the Sun Shines. When the Sun Shines, is a quote from Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, England, its climate is dismal, it's miserable, it's always rainy here, it's always chilly. But when the sun shines, there's no more beautiful place because everything is always green, because of the rain. And then the English have they're famous for their hedges and their gardens. And so the book, When the Sun Shines, was Ranchor's beautiful book about how Prabhupada and Prabhupada's first followers opened up England for Krishna consciousness. And Rancho recalls, because he was first, he was one of the first people in England. How, what was his last name was Prime. I think Ronald Prime. Ronald became, some R word became Rancho. So he said he always relished being in Prabhupada's room because Prabhupada was very relaxed in his room and he was exchanging very kind of in a relaxed way with the devotees. But then as soon as it was time for him to go downstairs into the temple, Rancho said, I immediately noticed the change. Prabhupada, he stood up and then his whole demeanor became like a founder Acharya demeanor. And he walked down and he entered the room and he sat on the big seat, Vyasasana. And having seen Prabhupada in his relaxed mood, he didn't like it as much because it was more formal. But to warrant, to deserve, to merit that kind of more intimate relationship, we have to approach Prabhupada in a very intimate, personal way and not be distant from him ourselves by being lax about following his instructions. He lives forever by his divine instructions and the follower lives with him. So the more we follow those instructions in a very personal way, in a very detailed way. My god sister Rukmini, the same lady who said, I feel lonely when you're not here. She once wrote Prabhupada a letter later on. She was one of the pujaris in New York temple. And she said, how can I improve my service to the deity? Radha Govinda. And Prabhupada wrote back, well, she asked many things, but on that question, he said, whether your fingernails are long, in other words, you should clip your nails, because if your fingernails are too long, when you're touching the deity, you're going to scratch you're going to hurt the deity. But if we're thinking the deity is stone or wood or marble, then it won't even occur to us, right? And then he also told her to clean under your finger, be very clean under those fingernails and clip them, because you might, your sharp nails might hurt the deity. So it's just all in the way we approach Prabhupada, Krishna, the devotees. It's a matter of being conscious. It takes practice. So, and here's on the other side of the coin, to your question, Prabhu. I have a devotee, a godbrother who passed away. His name was Sri Ram, and he was always involved in education. And when Harishari Prabhu was coming out with his Transcendental Diaries, and Harishari, because he was a servant of Prabhupada, he was giving everyone a glimpse of what it was like to be in Prabhupada's, close physical association. And so then Harishari started traveling with his Transcendental Diaries and telling more stories that even didn't fit into the book. And so one day, I think it was in Los Angeles, Sri Ram came up to Harishari Prabhu and said, Harishari Prabhu, I don't like it when you tell all these intimate things. And Harishari was surprised. He was shocked. What? Really? I mean, the devotees like it to know what was Prabhupada like when he was alone in his room, because most people didn't see him like that. They just saw him in a big hall, with hundreds of devotees and giving class and, touring the world and, the founder Acharya aspect. So Sri Ram said, well, I don't like it because that's how I relate to Prabhupada. I relate to him as the founder Acharya. And I need that. I need that formal kind of majestic presence. It was almost like someone saying, I don't want to know Krishna. I just want to know Vishnu. I want to go to Vaikuntha and relate to the Lord as the king, and not go to Golok and being as, intimate like that. So some people like that. And certainly we need that awe and reverence. Even we worship Radha Krishna. Prabhupada said we worship Radha Krishna in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan with awe and reverence, because otherwise we get too familiar and casual, thinking that I have Krishna in my back pocket or something. There's different ways to answer your question. But the main way, I'll tell you, the main way that I try to be close to Prabhupada is always by hearing him. Like right now, I'm up to his audio, his audio, Vani. I'm up to 1973. I just heard a long conversation this morning, which I always do when I get up and I'm doing my morning ablutions, evacuating, shaving, etc. It was with a British lord named Lord Brockway. And he was very, upper crust Tory, guy, but he was also nice. And he was born in Calcutta, so he grew up around, his parents were missionaries, so he grew up around the Gita and stuff, and he was appreciating Prabhupada's movement. And Prabhupada was, and now there he was a lord in England. He was in the parliament, not the House of Commons, but he was in the House of Lords. So Prabhupada is really trying to help him understand Krishna consciousness very deeply. And then Prabhupada said, why am I spending so much time trying to help you understand? Because you are a Shrestha. And then Prabhupada says to Prajumya, the Sanskrit editor, find out that verse, Yad Yada Charati Shreshtas, and Prajumya finds it. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow. Whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. And then Prabhupada laughs and he says, that's why I'm speaking with you, because you are an influential person. What you and your colleagues do in the parliament, it affects so many people's lives. So if you understand the Gita's spiritual and scientific presentation of God consciousness, you can help so many people. And then that took the conversation at another turn. So we become dear to Prabhupada and intimate with him when we deeply understand his teachings and share it with others, imbibe and impart. And then we get a lot of reciprocation from Srila Prabhupada. It's not the same as, physical reciprocate. It's even better, actually. It's more, because the physical thing comes and goes, and those memories are wonderful. Why? Because Prabhupada, even in his Vapu form, was exhibiting what a pure soul is like, how he behaves on earth. So we're meant to follow, not imitate, but follow that example. Yeah. Okay, it's getting kind of late. Are there any other questions or comments? I guess we'll have to, as I mentioned before, we are going to re-record lesson 1 because it wasn't recorded. And that will complete the series.
Yes, Prabhuji. So thank you so very much, and such nice and detailed answer you gave, Prabhuji. Yes. So very grateful to you. And also, somehow by Prabhupada's mercy, so we'll get to hear the first session again. Many of you may have forgotten it. So it'll be good revision also for us. So we will host it soon. So all of us, we would like to thank His Grace Suresvara Prabhu from the bottom of our heart for such nice association and telling us the position of Srila Prabhupada as founder Acharya. Every time we hear it, few things get absorbed in our, at least in my dull brain. So we are very, very thankful to Prabhuji, and we heartily thank Prabhu by loudly chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. His Grace Suresvara Prabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay, we'll be in touch, Prabhu, about when we want to record that.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.